Well, thank you so much for choosing Morning Live. Now, yesterday we spoke to the Premier of Gauteng, Job Mokgoro, and today we continue in this series of conversations with premiers of the 9 provinces across the country. And this morning our focus is on the Northwest Province. Now, in May, the government, national government, placed the Northwest Province under administration, and that was due to a breakdown of service delivery and also a collapse in governance throughout the province and at local government level. Professor Job Mokgoro was appointed to take over from Premier Supra Mahumapelo, who then resigned following weeks of violent service delivery protests in the Northwest Province. And 6 months on, we catch up with the Northwest Premier Job Mokgoro to hear what has happened since he took over as Premier. Thanks so much for coming through this morning, Professor Mokgoro.
Yeah, my pleasure, thanks.
Let me start with something that the DA says. They say Mokgoro is the Mampara of the year. And he's an epic fail in the Northwest Province because his legacy is one of failure because he's serving the interest of the ANC and not that of the people of the Northwest Province. And I couldn't help but wonder, do you regret taking on this job?
Well, I actually think that it would have been better if I took it earlier, just given the enormity of the task and just the unbelievable things that one encounters on a daily basis. So, yes, there is a lot out there to be done, and I have absolutely no regrets. And I look forward to turning things around. And contrary to the view of the DA, my focus is on the 3.84 million people in the province. And that is what matters most to me.
So you say you actually wish you'd been given this job earlier. Let's unpack that. Why and what do you mean by that?
Well, the extent of the rot, the complexity and the chaos out there is unbelievable. And it's going to take so many 10-pound hammers to really, take a hard knock on these challenges. I got in there, and the first task was that of stabilization. Remember, I've just been there over 5 months, stabilization. And that has included making sure that employees settle in and continue their tasks, look at institutional rearrangements, look at organizational issues, and broadly, reassure society, restore confidence in society and government. And so these are the key elements that one has had to deal with in this stabilization effort. One of the prominent things in this exercise of stabilizing the environment, of course, has been the question of ensuring that there is compliance with the Public Finance Management Act. You would recall that one report after the other of the Auditor General would have prominent the questions of irregularities and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So these are the issues that consumed a lot of my energies together with those who assist me.
Have you made any sort of meaningful headway, given that you have 5 of your provincial departments under full administration?
Yes, certainly we have. Just to give you some statistics, we have about 10 cases on the roll of the NPA. We have about 21, actually not roll of the NPA, but in court, 10 cases in court, and about 21 cases on the NPA's roll, and 15 cases that are being investigated. In addition to that, you would have seen that recently we suspended 2 chief directors in the office of the Premier, and this is associated with a huge ICT contract by a company called Nepo Dynamics. But in addition to suspending these 2 senior officials, we've also terminated the contract. And investigations continue in the office of the Premier as well as in various government departments.
One of the criticisms, and this is not only true of the Northwest, but of provincial departments across the spectrum and also other, national departments, has been that when we talk about maladministration and malfeasance, when we talk about people not adhering to the rule of law, not following the PFMA to the letter, very often you find that it is the bureaucrats who suffer and have to actually answer for what goes wrong, whereas the politicians go scot-free. So in this instance, how many politicians have actually been implicated in wrongdoing in the Northwest Province?
Well, the fact of the matter is, I think the law is very clear. So that if a bureaucrat of any manager ends up, doing wrong things, deviating from prescripts, he or she is only having himself or herself to blame. It is very clear, for instance, that procurement processes are matters for the accounting officer and the management team who assist the accounting officer. Managers have got to be firm in terms of the rules. Management have got to be firm in terms of their responsibilities, their accountability, and not kowtow and allow themselves to be bullied by political principles.
But we know that this is a reality and that this indeed does happen. So again, is it possible that you would have all this wrongdoing going on and not a single political head is held accountable for what has gone wrong?
Well, the fact of the matter is there should be robustness in terms of policy advice. If a manager gets a distraction to do something that is deviant, then he or she has a responsibility to very firmly, respectfully advise the principal.
So let's talk about, some of the developments. The Department of Health, which has been in crisis mode in your province. We've seen the department at loggerheads with unions, etc., etc. Then you have your HOD, Dr. Lekalakala. Now, he was on suspension, he was on leave of absence. Then he comes back. The unions push back against his return to work, and now we understand he's suspended again. What exactly is going on there? Because it doesn't seem to inspire much confidence that, given the accusations against Dr. Lekalaka, you haven't acted and brought charges against him.
Well, at face value, it may come across as, that the unions are the ones who have actually sent him back. The fact of the matter is that there has been a technicality, and one must distinguish between technicalities and the substance of the issues, such as matters that have been surfaced in the recent past. So, being put back on precautionary suspension has nothing, and I want to emphasize that, with any pressure that has been brought to bear by unions. So,
given that it was an extended period of absence from his position, why haven't there been any significant movements made, given what he has been charged with, and charged with in this instance, the accusations leveled against him, particularly that 30 million rand payment that was allegedly paid to Mediosa?
Yes, I only wish that things could have been faster than they have been.
But why haven't they been, Dr. Mokgoro?
Let's not overlook the fact that, as you did allude to that in the beginning, let's not overlook the fact that we are under Section 100. Now, if you look at Dr. Lekalakala, there's three principles that have to be considered, whatever action such as this one have to be taken. You have the Premier of the province, who appoints HODs. You have the MEC for Health. You have the Minister of Health. But at the same time, the office of the Premier is under Section 101B. So at some stage, unfortunately, there was some kind of debate around this kind of issue, and apart from the debate, there needs to be agreement across the board. So whilst on the one hand, there are enormous gains that have come out of Section 100, you cannot run away from the fact that because of the points of consultation and the need for consensus, a little more time would be spent than would normally be the case.
Professor Mokgoro, let me not pretend that I understand what you're saying, because I don't. So maybe if we can just simplify it, what exactly has been hindering yourself as the Premier and your government from actually acting against what seems to be a very glaring action of malfeasance around and linked to Dr. Lekalakala and Midiosa? What has been the problem?
There has not been any hindrance. What I'm saying is, as a result of the complexity brought about by the fact that the provincial administration is under Section 100 of the Constitution, when decisions of this nature have to be taken, there has got to be consultation between various parties, and consensus has to be reached in terms of the way forward. Obviously, with a passage of time, one gets used to how the system has to operate, and then things would then move faster, which is the case as we talk now.
All right. Let's not belabor that any longer. Let's talk about VBS. And this, of course, one of the provinces where municipalities had invested monies with a VBS Mutual Bank. So what is the latest in terms of your investigations?
Well, as you know, 4 municipalities have participated in this, and a total of 314 million was invested and has been lost.
Has been lost, just like that. It's gone.
It's gone. I think it is public knowledge that it is gone. We all know that VBS has been liquidated. Municipalities have already started taking action. In Mahikeng, for instance, the municipal manager is on suspension. Madibeng have done their forensic investigation, and they have taken actions against those who are involved. Then some of the people in these municipalities are politicians, and the African National Congress in the province has just taken decisions recently, and the decision is there has to be disciplinary action against those political principles in those municipalities.
So action is being taken? Action
has been and is being taken.
All right. And then let's go to Matlosana. Now, very curious things happening in Matlosana. At one stage, you had a mayor who was elected the previous day, and the following day he resigned. And then you had the former mayor being re-elected into the position of mayor. So what exactly is going on there?
Well, let's not forget that part of the challenge in the Northwest has been a question of factionalism, especially at political level. Since we came in, we have started the process of really cracking this factionalism at local level, at provincial level, as well as at national level. I think with the guidance and leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa, we've gone a long way in really fighting against factionalism. You still have traces of this. And coming to your example in Matlosana, you had 17 councillors voting with the opposition. And that is just the reality of the matter. However, the principles and the disciplines of the ANC are very, very firm. And we took the necessary action. There has been intervention. The situation has been restored to normality. And further action is being contemplated.
Restored to normality as per how the ANC wants it. And I think this is one of the reasons why, for example, the DA charges that you've been more concerned about ANC and playing the ANC political game as opposed to worrying about service delivery in the province. How do you respond to that in this Matlosana situation?
Clearly, if people who have been deployed, in this case political functionaries, who have been deployed to ensure maximization of service delivery to the population, behave in deviant manners, that will inevitably impact negatively on service delivery. So when you take corrective action, what you do in the process, you remind people of the basic principles and values of the African National Congress.
So the provincial task team that was set up, they had some difficulty being accepted by some of the factions on the ground. How is that working at the moment?
Well, the settling in happened within a much quicker period of time than one wants to imagine. It is only natural when they set in uncertainties and not really knowing how the system is going to operate. The situation has stabilized as far as I'm concerned. For example, there are 5 departments that are under Section 101B, which means you've had administrators deployed in those departments and they act as accounting officers. They report to me, amongst others. And so at all times, I know what is happening in the various departments. So that the question of difficulties for them to settle in and being accepted is a matter of the past.
And again, it paints that picture of a province in deep, deep trouble. Because if you take the example of Getleng Rivier, for example, where you had the ratepayers in that particular municipality being granted powers by the court to actually take over the control of the service delivery there. What's the latest there? And what do you make of that? Because it sends out a very strong message of the incapability of those who were elected to actually do that which they were elected for.
Well, that problems of incapability would emerge from time to time in various municipalities, including Getleng. Is one thing that often happens in organizations, but what management and leadership does in terms of intervention is the key thing. Now, you would know that Getleng River is one of the municipalities that are under administration. We have an administrator there. Only yesterday, I met with the mayor and we discussed progress. And I'm satisfied that things are on course in terms of getting back to normality.
So how would you score? How would you rate your own progress over these 5-6 months that you have been at the helm of this province?
Well, in terms of stabilization, I would give a rating of about 7 out of 10. And in terms of stepping up, stepping up service delivery, I think we should be at about 6.5. We need to do a lot more. But because we're reaching a point where stability has a lot more improved, in the next coming 5-6 months, we would really be stepping up on the service delivery front.
So stability having improved, would you say it is purely that, or is it a matter of you being able to stamp your authority as in Matlosana and making sure that you have the people you want in place come through?
Clearly one relies on the other, and stamping of authority is very, very fundamental in this instance. And Matlosana, and there are other municipalities that are in the pipeline. I think in the next couple of days we'll be making the necessary announcements. But the question of visible, effective leadership is very key in this regard.
So going into elections next year, what do you think the ANC's chances would be of actually retaining the Northwest Province?
Well, we've just had a by-election, Ward 17 in Mahikeng. Surprise, surprise, we actually performed better than 2016. So notwithstanding an intervening variable, such as the upheavals we've had earlier in this year, we've actually performed better than we did in 2016, where things were supposedly normal. We have another by-election that's coming up in Ramotsiri-Mwilwa on the 12th of December. And please invite me back here and I will tell you how well we've done there.
Well, we certainly will. Professor Job Mokgoro, thanks so much for stopping by. And that's the Premier of the Northwest Province, bringing the nation up to speed regarding the state of the province after it was placed under administration. And of course, this in a series of interviews with premiers from across the province. Yesterday, we spoke to Gauteng Premier David Makhura. This morning, Professor Job Mokgoro from the Northwest Province. And of course, we'll be speaking to all the others over a period of time as well. With that, it brings us up to 8 o'clock.